Make sure it looks like everyone has a little plate of food, and I'd like to introduce to you John Holm. He is the candidate for the U.S. Congressional District 2, and welcome to Lakeview, and we're happy that you're ready.
Okay, well, let me get up here so I'm in front of the camera, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, you got them going here, Jim.
They want me to be famous, so I gotta get up here. Unfortunately. So, sorry, I gotta make everybody turn around now. But I'll wait. I have to get turned around, face me. So, my name is John Holm. I was born in Grants Pass, Oregon, over in Josephine County, which is still in this district, believe it or not. Barely. Thumbprint of it. I lived there till 1990, and then I moved over into Jackson County because unfortunately it was getting a little bit too Republican for me. I got tired of listening to all the old guys saying how they were tired of having to pay taxes for the school when their kids weren't in it. And when I got done telling them that the reason why that they needed to keep paying taxes for it was because someone paid it for their kids while they were in there, and it was just paying it, around. They kept looking at me like faces like so. I was like, I knew I wasn't going to get through their heads even with a mallet. So I turned around, and at the time I was going to get married on there, but things didn't work out. So after things changed a little bit for me, I wanted to move in to my parents in Jackson County and changing my life there. Spent time there as a grocery clerk, then this came along. Then I went through disability and then became a realtor. And when I got up shortly before the big, and then I was approached by a friend who wanted me to help him in politics. I don't know why, but I said okay. And after he told me why he wanted me to, I still said okay. But I told him, I said, if we're going to do this, so I want to know how to do it right. So I want to learn how Democrats do it. And I want to know how to do it on both sides. He wanted strategies. I got the money, but I'm not very good with people. He says, you're good with people. And if we're going to work with people on there, I need someone to give a good front end. I said, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to work with communities. So if you want to put candidates up here, we're going to have them represent communities. I said, you rent houses for HUD people on here, and when you do that, these people on here, you keep the rents down for HUD so that you're doing a good job for them. And if we're going to be politicians, we should be doing that, because that's why you're in this. It's because when the Republicans came to you and chased you into politics, is when you want to do this, because basically they changed your mind and made sure you stay Democrat. They said, yes, sounds good to me. I'll put the money up and learn how to do it. We'll do this. So I went to Democrat school, learned how they did their strategy. And when I got done, he and his friends said, okay, let's go for it. I said, no, I got to go to Republican school. And they said, say what? I said, no, I got to learn how to fight the way they fight. I said, why? Actually, use a little bit fouler language. But for the ladies, I will not repeat that. And I said, if we don't know how they fight, then how are we going to fight them? We have to understand everything. I said, if I'm going to do this right, I have to learn how to be a good strategist. We have to know everything. And he says, it's going to take a little longer. That's fine. Everybody will make more money, and we'll do this the correct way. He said, all right, learn. But get it done. So I went out and I went to Republican school. I felt like I needed a bath when I got done. But I learned their strategies. So, but when I did this, I learned some things I didn't want to learn. But I found out why basically this district is probably the way it is. And I can probably become a very good congressman for you and help change things in the long run because of this. And I want to help you guys. And if you're willing, I'd like to help explain to you guys, help you learn a little bit here right now. And I went to one of the classes, I learned how they raise money. One of the things they taught was they have a 4-tier system about raising money. And their tiers, they break down on what tier each person is on who's going to be what tier. And then their first tier is their ultra rich tier, the stockbrokers, and like Donald Trump would have been tier 1 person. Sheldon Adelman, he was a tier 1. But he goes, unless you're in Congress or senator, so don't worry about that. You'll never see those guys. He goes, but for the other guys on here, you guys are going to need to worry about tier 2 and tier 3. He goes, those guys are the ones that you really have to. This is where you're going to need to talk about being conservative. This is where this really matters. I'm sitting back thinking, why the heck does this term conservative really matter for this? He goes, here's what I'm talking about. What we're going to do is you're going to go up there and say, I'm conservative. So what happens is you go up there and you're going to start signing up your donors. And your tier 3 people are going to be your lawyers. They're going to be your real estate people. They're going to be, your insurance brokers and your larger car dealerships. Your tier 3 people are going to be your contractors, shops and home accessories, your repairmen like windows and doors and your plumbers, your auto mechanics, your auto accessories, your gun dealers, your pawn shops, and then your tier 4 is easy. Actually, you regular blue collar people. Those are your $5 to $100 people. So now, the next part is after you get elected, what's going to happen next? What do you think they're expecting you to do next? So we asked the audience what they expected to do next. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think that the answer was from the crowd?
Cut taxes.
Very good. Sheriff actually brought that one up. So everybody said cut taxes. He goes, all right, what's the side effect of cutting taxes?
Awesome.
Cutting services.
Yeah.
All right, what services?
Damn near anything.
Yeah, but be a little bit more specific.
Roads.
No, be a little bit more specific though.
Social
Welfare, social benefits.
Schools.
All right, there's one. What's another one? I gave you a clue already of what was brought up. The sheriff brought it up. Cops,
Oh, law enforcement.
law enforcement.
Safety.
Yeah. And then he brought up, other emergency services. But he goes, after that happens, what's next? And mind you, this is the guy that's bringing up donations for you guys. He's telling us what's going to happen. So this is a Republican guy telling us about getting donations. So what happens next? No. What's the next side effect of these guys getting cut? Losing their jobs.
unemployment.
Exactly. So when crime is raised,
Increase.
increased crime. So what happens when crime is increased?
You hire more law enforcement.
No, you don't. Taxes are cut. Crime is increased. So what happens?
You build more prisons.
No. Property values start changing. It's the first thing that happens. So people start moving because different areas, your property values are changing. So the real estate agents start selling property and moving people around. Premiums start getting changed because people are making claims. They write checks to people because they're having to make repairs to people. They're having to replace cars and stuff that's being stolen out of them. Are you starting to see a line here that's being happen for their donors? Who or why their donors are actually behind them and why they like them to be the way they are? They're making money off them by being the way they are. You guys get to save money on taxes, but you wind up saving money on taxes when you wind up having to pay more in premiums, you wind up paying more by having to replace all your stuff. You're paying more by moving all the time. You're having to replace your cars, but you're having to pay the deductibles, you're having to do this, you're having to do that. Think about all the different price differences that you're paying for. Now, when you're talking about county like this, there's also other changes that are happening here. Your schools that are being reduced because of lack of teachers. Do you have charter schools coming in yet?
Well, they drop out of public school and then do charter schools online.
Right.
And I think Pace is a charter school.
Here's the thing on here. Even though charter schools aren't supposed to be supporting Republicans, people that are owning charter schools, they can support the Republicans privately. The people that own them. They just can't support it. The charter school itself can't do it. So as a private person, they can support it. So all of a sudden, you have more support for the Republicans. So all of a sudden, you have another way of more money coming in for Republicans. This is all stuff he's bringing up to us as part of donors and donations of why you want to be Republican, why you want to start telling people, why you want to be conservative, why you want to press this point to us. And one of the people, there was a teacher, and I noticed her watching it, and I was watching her face, and she was kind of really thrown throughout the whole thing, so I kept an eye on her for later, because it was kind of interesting to watch her, because she was kind of squirming throughout the whole thing. And I'll tell you why later. But the sheriff was like really getting into this, because he wound up running for office later. The good news is he didn't get very far. I kept track of him. But this is what we're having a problem with, because it shrinks towns and it really slows down jobs, slows down wages, and it's holding us back. But where we have stronger Democrats and more progressive on here, we have better wages, and we have larger towns, and we have better job markets. And what could we do if we had a little bit better job markets for towns like Lakeview? Could we bring in a little bit better, more business? Could we bring in other technologies? Could we bring in other avenues of business that could change what's happening here? And as your next congressman, what could I do to help change and add in more avenues for that to happen? And that's one of the things I'm here to ask is, what do you need? What do I need to know to help change and add to this problem? Or not problem, but add to the avenues to change this problem. So that's why I've come here to just sit here and listen and answer your questions, because I know some of what is going on from the people I've had that I've worked with that have come over here and listen. But I'd rather hear it straight from, pardon my saying this, horse's mouth, because that's the way my mother raised me. It's like better to hear it from the perfect people that actually live here than to hear it secondhand, which you're the people that live here. So,
one thing that I hear is the, especially the folks that are labeled maybe criminals. One of the reasons is that they may be, with some other people, law enforcement, that say you're criminals. There's a mental health issue. And so, depending on the people that are ending up incarcerated or whatever, it's a mental health issue. And I heard one woman at a meeting, she says, we're not getting the help. The people that have those problems, and which causes them to do certain things, which gets them incarcerated,
Well, one of the issues we have, like with Jackson County, they want to build a new jail, is you get thrown in jail, you lose your health benefits if you're on the Oregon Health Plan. Why can't we have a civil court that, before that, so you don't lose your health plan, so you can be brought into a drug rehabilitation program or something to help take you off this, if there's a way, if you haven't committed anything but a drug problem, to help go through this, or a mental problem, to help you go. But to do that, we're also gonna have to get more mental health physicians. And to do that, we have to get our sons and daughters to go to school, which means we're gonna have to get more education dollars to go through, which means we have to get more help to pass that. And there's some of the things I put in there to do all this. We can't just do it for the new people that are going through, because we're also going to have to get forgiveness for some of the old people that have gone through for their dollars, because you can't just do it for one without doing it for the other. It has to be equal throughout, otherwise you bring in the resentment problem. I bring in for labor as well as for education on there, because that's part of the problem we've had with labor as well as education. When we raise the minimum wage, and you only raise minimum wage, the guy that's worked 20 years all of a sudden is at the same wage as the minimum wage person, you've got to raise his wage up at the same time. You've got to remove the resentment. So if we're going to take care of the education problem, we have to do that as well. So same thing, same issue.
One thing I was gonna point out, this is an example, there's an individual, okay.
Yes.
He has a problem with law enforcement. And they say, okay, one of your probation requirements is that you attend some type of mental health, you get some type of mental health treatment. Okay, so the individual says, okay, that's no problem. Unfortunately, so at the time, the mental health person was in Klamath, so it does take some time to get over there.
Right.
The person went over there a couple times, and then they went another time, and they said, you can't come in here anymore. And they said, why? They said, you owe us money. Every time that you come down here, it's $150, and you owe us money. The county's not paying for your mental health treatments, you have to pay it. So they cut them off
Right.
for the mental health treatment. So the people over there say, hey, the person's no longer coming to mental health treatment. So what do? They pick him up for a violation of probation. And he's back in jail again for 10 or 15 days. So, how in the world can we expect these people
To get recovered if we don't have a way to get recovered.
Right, they don't have money. They say, I think there's very few people in this room here that have insurance that covers mental health treatments, and then out of pocket, $150 a treatment, or $50 or $100 a treatment. That's kind of out of our range, probably also.
Yeah, and that's.
And so the cycle, it just keeps going.
It is on there, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of like the Medicare for All plan, if we could get that installed. But a lot of people are kind of iffy on whether we could do that or not. To get it, and Oregon is sliding towards that way. I back whatever Oregon does head towards for their Medicare or for their medical plan. I would do whatever I could to get whatever funds available to back whatever plans they do. I don't care what they do, as long as they get everyone covered. I don't want Medicare. I keep wanting to say Medicare, but
Single payer.
yeah, single payer or whatever. Getting your health care should not be a penalty. It should be a right of everybody, and there should be a way to get it done. We need to find a way.
There's a way to get it done.
Yeah, there's got to be a way to find a way to do it.
Well, there is a way to do it, but we have too many other interests that don't want it done.
Don't want it done exactly because, well, the biggest problem is to do it is going to wind up getting rid of private insurance.
That's too bad.
And as far as I'm concerned,
They've been ripping us off for years.
well, I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna be on camera right now saying that as far as I'm concerned, private insurance had better lobbyists than the mafia when it came to a protection racket. They just got in there first to the Congress before anyone else. Because it's the same thing. But we did have at least something to start with. Now we need to step up and take the next step and do it right. And I think the government should be the one doing it instead of private, because private has fallen down and not done the correct job. So now we need to step in and do properly. They're not doing the right job, then we need to step in. I mean, my mother always stepped in and helped her neighbor. We had a neighbor across the street when I was a young child that used to shoot at us as kids when we went to the bus stop with a pellet gun. And trust me, I still remember the welts on my butt from getting hit. And he broke his leg one time. And I came home from school one time smelling a really good roast. And thinking, oh good, dinner's ready early that day. We don't have to wait for Dad to eat. And she told me to go get my little red wagon. I'm thinking, oh boy, what are we doing now? And she started loading all this food into it. She said, come on, we're going over to Bob's. And I'm thinking, Bob? That's that guy that always shoots at us with a darn pellet gun. Or BB gun, I still don't remember what it was, he shot at us with. So we loaded all that food in the wagon, we took it over there. She went over there, banged on his door. He hollered out, who the heck's at my door? See something else, but we're on camera, so I'm being nice. And she hollered back at him, open the darn door, Bob, this is Shirley. And some grumbling came on the other side, he opened the door, what do you want? She said, get out of my way, go sit down. He had a big old cast on his leg, hobbling on a cane. And she pushed him back in his chair, made him sit down. She goes, where's your table and everything? She pushed it in there. His wife had died several years back, and he was all by himself. And he had a halfway decent farm that he had like 6-7 cows, and he was by himself on there. We knew about it, but he was a huffy old man. Huffy was being nice. He was a grumpy old fart. But anyways, he hated everybody, it seemed like. But she said, get out of my way. I'm going over there and I'm going to clean things up and I'm getting your dinner ready. Shirley, what the heck are you doing that for? She goes, because you broke your leg and it's the right thing to do.
Well, you know, there's a way to do this. You're all on Social Security, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, Social Security also offers the medical part of it.
Yeah. Well,
Which we are on, Karen and I are on, and we have never seen a medical bill, no matter where we go.
here's the thing. Here's the thing.
No matter where we go, we get no medical bill, so why aren't you all taking advantage of that?
We Democrats are poor salesmen. I've got to say that. We're not the best salesmen when it comes to how to present this Medicare for all. The other audience who does not go to the doctors that often, we make up the difference on what people who do go.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
And that's the way it should work on here, but we don't sell it out properly. It would offset the cost for everything, so that it would pay for itself going across. And for everybody, it would make everything cheaper in the long run for America. And it would actually cut taxes, and it would cut everybody's costs down. Once we got rid of private insurance, everybody's costs would go way down. And it would cut out their private insurance costs, it would cut out their deductibles, and probably actually get rid of deductibles, period. But we're poor salesmen, and we won't stop and say this, and we won't actually do the numbers for everybody and figure it out, because we're too busy trying to make a fast sale, push it through and fight amongst each other, and take the time that we need to actually slow down and say this in the correct manner. And that's part of our problem. And one of the other things, well, we're on Medicare real quick, I want to get rid of the donut hole. If I ever get in office, that's going to be one of my pet peeves. My mother was in the donut hole by February, late February, and she fought through that, and it was by early May that she was getting out of it. That's how fast her medicines took her through. If you don't know what the donut hole is, the donut hole is you pay 80% of your prescriptions are paid 80%, and you pay 20%. Then you get into the donut hole. after you pay so much money, I can't remember what the dollar amount is. It's been a while since I had to do it for money. And you pay 100% for a certain dollar amount. After you get through the desert of the donut hole, then you go into 100% for the rest of your,
No, you pay all your prescription costs.
yeah.
When you're in the donut hole.
You're in the donut hole, you're paying 100%. Now, when you're on Social Security, paying 100% of your prescriptions, that's a lot of bucks. Especially when some of your prescriptions are $600 a shot. My mother's inhalers were outrageous.
Which is another problem,
Yeah.
is the cost of drugs.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing that we have to start working on. I like Elizabeth Warren and a lot of her stuff, but there's some of the things I don't like about her, but I am behind on some of her things. Each one of them have their good parts and each one of them have their bad parts. So I'm not picking who I'm behind and who I'm against. So I'll say that each one of them has good parts. I like some of Biden's good parts. There's some of the things I'm not for. So I won't say who I'm behind the most on there, but each of them have their good things. But I just pick out, certain things on them. But Elizabeth Warren, that's some of the good parts I do like. But we need to start thinking about how we can work together as a community. Because USA starts out with us, doesn't it? And that's how we need to start thinking about how we're going to start pulling this together and start working together as a community and working. And I think if we start figuring out how we're going to put things together and pulling things together, we can start building this as a coalition and working upward. Maybe stop fighting and screaming and hollering. I mean, I've seen way too many meetings where we've been fighting over the force and how they're going to use them. I went to one where they were talking about fighting over whether they could use four-wheelers versus how they were going to cut the trees and whether they were going to do something else also with it. And I was like, wait a minute, can't we shut up for a minute and actually listen to the third plan? And they wouldn't even let that guy have a say, before they were already pulling out the canes and the baseball bats on each other.
One thing that seems to be a problem, I don't know, is we have a water issue in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We're not taking care of the water.
No.
And I'm sure there's a lot of solutions, but one of the things I saw a program recently, and I couldn't believe it. There was this one part of the country where the people, the Americans, the US citizens, are having a hard time getting water. The water table is going down. And they're not, the wells have to go down deeper, the quality of the water is going down. And they said, well, what's causing this? And they said, because they're using that water, they're losing it, to raise alfalfa. Okay? There's nothing wrong with raising alfalfa. But the folks said, what they're doing is that alfalfa is going to like Saudi Arabia. We're growing, so the Saudis are growing alfalfa or whatever for themselves, and that alfalfa is going overseas, and they're using our water. They're not saying, hey, well, we're going to use our water to figure out how to do this. The United States has a lot of water right now, so let's just use their water. And a lot of people don't realize that. It isn't here happening in the county, but in some other parts of the United States, that's what's happening. And one thing that I saw in today's or yesterday's newspaper, they were talking about the natural gas pipeline going over to Coos Bay. And it was Senator Merkley, and I hadn't realized this, I guess, should have. He's saying, number one, he says, people are saying, well, it's going to help the economy and everything. But he says that in natural gas is not going to help U.S. citizens.
It's going to China.
It's being taken over there by a foreign company who's running their pipeline through, using public domain laws or whatever to put this pipeline through. And it's a foreign company. And one of the things they're selling is, well, we'll let you have a little bit of gas. You put a little plug on the way down there, you can have a little bit of gas over in Cape Falls or wherever it's going to. And again, it seems like the same thing with the coal coming out of Canada. You know, it's going down the Columbia River Gorge, and they're saying, hey, you know, there's a problem with that, going over to, where is that, Astoria. Well, that coal's going to China, isn't it? And I mean, we're like, we don't realize.
We're exporting it, but we're not making anything off of it, really.
Yeah, well, we don't have to make anything of it, but we're hurting ourselves by
Right.
doing that. Yeah. What happens with China, we get it here, and we used to get it over on the coast quite a bit, and even in Idaho. At times we have pollution. We say, hey, you know, shoot, it's really a cloudy day, murky and everything. And then they say, well, where's this stuff coming from? And they say, oh, well, China. You know, the winds are blowing in our direction this week, and we're getting all that coal pollution coming over, you know, across the Pacific from China. So, I don't know, I guess I'm telling you, because it doesn't seem like congressmen and the people back in DC they don't see this.
Well, I would like to see another energy. There was an energy evaluation done for the state of Oregon by Second Congressional District back in the 70s that for their territory that evaluated natural energy resources on what would happen. And this was using for how at the time it was the quality that we had for wind, solar, and hydropower available back then. But the state of Oregon could, for what Pacific Power owned, had available to it. The state of Oregon could power the whole West Coast at that time. Just using, if they had taken and used the availability for natural resources, they could have powered the whole West Coast. Just using natural resources. I mean, the Applegate Dam, which is located in Rouge, in Jackson County, is all set for a turbine. Doesn't have one because it will lower the rates. You know, Pacific Power didn't want to put one in. But this report got disappeared, and my father's like, I mean, we should have made a copy of that one, but unfortunately, you know, and now he's dead, and I can't find the person that gave him the copy of it originally, I'm just like, get a hold of it, but I'd love to see another report done for this area to see what the new resources would have, because most of these resources were done for the east side. And this district here, what we could do for this area, because this is a lot of your area, what you guys could do for wind, solar, and hydro. I mean, that's a lot of jobs that could be produced here. And technology. Think about all the jobs that would create and the technology it would improve, because that would mean all of the children that you guys would have that would be going out, learning all this technology, coming back, and then they would be bringing back, and this wouldn't be just, you know, a short term, this would be a long lifetime thing, and it was talking about putting them in, not in fields that were growing things, this was talking about putting them in fields that grew nothing but rocks and weeds, and taking advantage of it and producing enough power to run the whole West Coast. I mean, that's Los Angeles. And they said a little bit of tweaking, it was even possible to include Las Vegas. Vegas uses a lot of power.
But I think, I mean, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but we all know the problems. We don't have to sit here and talk about all the problems. And Democrats know them probably better than anyone else. But, whoever thought we would have a man that we have in the White House?
Yeah.
Whoever thought that we would have a Supreme Court where we would have a year that went by in President Obama's term that the majority leader blocked any judges. Now we're gonna have a judiciary for the next 50 to 100 years that's gonna be conservative because we have a Republican president. We found that all these things we say, oh, isn't this terrible, Trump's doing this, and the Congress is, no, we don't have water, we don't do this. We don't have solutions for it, nothing that we have at this point is gonna do a damn thing
All we
about it.
All we need
Except
records
to
are fighting.
change the votes. Now, how are you in a district that went overwhelmingly for Donald Trump gonna resolve that and gonna solve that? How are you going to, you talked about screaming heads and that kind of thing, how are you gonna bring them together?
Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is start listening to everybody.
Well, no, the
Well-
people won't even talk to you.
They won't even
Well,
listen.
They won't
No.
even tell you, I have tried that, I have tried to go and say,
Come down to my coffee.
the most vociferous Second Amendment guys. I try to go and say, hey,
For you guys,
hey,
it's,
just a minute.
okay, sorry.
I say, born and raised here, went away, came back, never seen it like this before. And I said, why don't we sit down and talk? No, because you just wanna make me come over to your side. People won't even talk to each other, so, I mean, for you to say, well, I'm gonna try to listen to what people want, I mean, what if this was a radical, screaming, mob of Republicans that say, we want Trump in there, we want more conservative judges, we don't wanna pay taxes, what are you gonna say?
Well, let's put it this way, I know I'll never win those people. The ones I know I can win are the ones that are sitting on the fence. They're looking for someone that is willing to
How
start this.
many are sitting on the fence in this district?
In this district, about a third.
It can't be.
I think I agree with that.
Really? I don't believe it.
There is, in this district, the non-affiliated, the ones that have dropped out of both parties, there's literally over a third. They are actually more numerous than the Republicans and the Democrats.
Okay, but I don't know how recent your statistics are. I mean, are those not affiliated because they want to be, or because the DMV started doing that a year ago or whatever, and they're not affiliated? They're registered as not affiliated, so if that's the case, you don't know.
Well, actually, going through the records, we figured about 20% of them are due to the DMV, and the rest of them have been dropouts because of the elections. And that's looking at the way that they have changed through the county records. So, yeah, we've been looking through the records. So, yes, I would agree that 20% of them are DMV.
So
Roughly.
20%
Of the third,
of the third,
of the third.
okay.
So
So
20%
you're
of
only
the third.
talking about 13% on the fence.
No, we're not. We're talking about, so let's say, if you're talking about 100,000 people, 20% of them, so 80,000 people are still on the fence. So out of 100,000, you'd be talking about, but we're talking about way more than that, than just count of the non-affiliated. We're talking about several 100,000. So there's a lot more out there that are on the fence, believe it or not. And there's also a lot of people that aren't registered that are still moving around. The census people are trying to get counted in that through the Indian tribes and through the immigrations, the Latino communities and several others. We figure there's probably another 150,000 through them that they're trying to get counted. That we're trying to also get involved. But yeah, I'm figuring that if we do this correctly and we can get more of them involved, my hardest thing is actually going to be winning the Democratic primary. I really do think so. I've been talking with the unions, and when I talked with them in Jackson County, they said the last people they talked with them for 10 minutes and walked out. I talked with them for over a half hour to 45 minutes. And they actually wanted me to come back and talk with their people and sit down there and actually walk with them and talk with them at their meetings. So they actually want me to come back and talk with them more. So if I get the unions to go with them, then we're trying to work more with the educators and the health groups. So if I get them working with me and then working with the veterans that was down at the Jackson County Auxiliary, working with them as well, because those are groups that have not been worked with very much. And if I start working with that with the east side as well, and getting to understand that we're not trying to leave them out of the loop. On their understanding, we're trying to bring them back in, trying to understand them, we're trying to listen to what their needs and wants were, and that they were left out, because I understand from listening to Triangle that when Jamie ran through on here, they kind of got lifted up, and the function didn't get left. The group kind of let things kind of collapse a little bit. Win or lose, I'd like to make sure that the Democrats get left and don't get collapsed a little bit on here. I'd love to see you guys actually get your own office and get built up enough to where you guys can be standing a lot stronger when you get done.
We know when Jamie ran, I mean, her percentages for the people that voted
Yeah.
was pretty high and surprising. I think one of the reasons I personally think one of the reasons why he went out is because he said, hey, you know, if she runs again, there may be some problems there, I mean, and because she had, I mean, sure, her numbers were, percentage-wise, were pretty good.
The other thing I'm planning on doing is, when I win, is also trying to help bring and train people through my office to help run younger, so that we can bring more stronger candidates to help in other counties, so that we can bring better people out as leaders. Maybe they run as legislators, maybe they run as mayors, maybe they run, different areas, but to help bring stronger, throughout on here. So it won't be just me running for this office, but I will help. As a political strategist, I was also a trainer for what I did. And I'll be able to bring everything I have to the table. So it won't be just me doing this, I'll be training other people. And as I run my campaign, I'll be training them to help train fully throughout the thing. So as I build up my campaign, I'll be continually training them and training everybody else. And maybe even as I'm running my campaign up and going, I'll be continuing to train people going along. So maybe my campaign might even train some people out that might be running office here later, even throughout this. So it's my hope to continue to build up throughout, this whole thing. So there's a lot to do and a lot that I have to offer. I haven't even reached a potential of what I can do and offer. There's just, I can't even come close to explaining everything I do know and what I help and offer. I mean, I was teaching ethics online for part of the things I was doing for other things.
Well, I don't know how many people agree with it, but Michael Moore, quite a while back, a couple of weeks ago, he was on TV, he made an interview, he made a statement which I think was pretty good. And that's one thing we need to push, and he said, don't worry, we just, all the Democrats, they need to go, every single one of them. And so we need to do everything possible for, get rid of them. He said, hey, not one, don't need one. They, because they're not thinking right, and they need to go. And
All Democrats?
no, all the Republicans, I'm sorry, all the Republicans need to go.
One of the biggest problems that I've seen is
So-
that most of our people we've had running have been businessmen, have been CEOs, have been people that have not been able to represent the community. I have been someone that has lived life on here at the lower levels on here. I took care of my mother lately on here before I took time down on her. My mother was dying from cancer, so for up to the last 3 years on here, I literally helped her pass on at home. People I was working with said, hey, she helped raise me in high school on here, you step down and you make sure she passes away at home. And when he said that, I was like, okay, thank you. So that's what I did. I stepped down. I made sure she got to pass away at home. And I worked from my computer at home on there to help him on there. And that's what I did for 2 years to help make sure that she got to do that. I worked away. I worked actually more than that, 5 years at home. But I was able to leave the house for 3 of the years. And then the last 2 years I stayed home, making sure she was there with the nurses and everything. So it was just a matter of, where do you want your people to actually have their responsibilities? And their life responsibilities is communities. I think we need to be more representative of our communities, and we need to go back and say, who do you want someone to do? Do you want someone that's gonna represent people? Do you want someone that's gonna stand by you and have town halls all the time? Do you want someone to come back that's gonna listen? Because my plan is to have people, I like as many offices around as I can to be able to be my eyes and ears, so that when I know that someone comes in my office and tells them something, that they're gonna come back to me, whether I can be there or not. And when I'm off duty, I'm gonna be coming around as many town halls as I can, and to make sure I get at least 2 days for myself for home time, and then head back to Washington to do a particular thing I just learned from my town halls back there to go to work. Because that's my responsibility. I am an employee of the people, not an employee of the lobbyists or anyone else. My responsibility is the voters write my paycheck, not the lobbyists, not anyone else. And not the people who deposit money into my quote-unquote war chest on here. I'm not taking money from anyone else other than the people from Oregon. That's where my responsibility lies. I may take money from like Susan B. Comey because of the responsibility for women. I think that I would accept money from because I do believe in women's rights and women's health. And that's one of the few things that I would take money from. But that is just one of the things I do believe in.
May I say
Yes, go for it.
Well, I mean, let's be real here. And we can go back to your list of the donor tiers.
Right,
This is a money game.
it is a money game.
And if anyone thinks it's not a money game and they think they're not gonna be able to do this without at some level being part of the money game, that's pretty naive.
In Jackson County, there is more than enough money in there to cover you would not believe. To be honest, I don't know what there is on this side on there, but there's quite a bit of money just in Jackson County, and I'm willing to bet you that on this side, there's a lot more money here than you even understand.
Money, from what source? What are you talking about?
From the wineries to even unfortunately marijuana growers, the hemp growers, the farmers. There's a lot of, I know just from some of the farms on there that are already talking to me about becoming donors.
Okay, well, not all of these liberal marijuana and hemp growers are Democrats.
Well, I know they're not.
Some of them are way right Republicans, so,
Well, not all of them, but there's quite a few of them.
well, you haven't been in Lake County.
Well, no, I haven't. I'm just now coming to Lake County.
Yeah, well, you got a lot to learn.
Well, that's why I'm just now coming over here.
Army ranching, you're up against the wall here.
No, I understand that.
They're all Republicans.
Well, that's why I'm here to start changing. That's why I'm over here to start changing. I've got to start raising my voice first. Yes, sir.
Yeah, changing the subject a little bit,
Yes.
I'd like to get back to what you were saying about Medicare for all.
Yes.
Are you saying that this would be less expensive for everybody, or that some people are gonna have to pay more taxes, or just, are there winners and losers here, and
It should.
also, I mean, more fundamentally, how can you say that it can be, that it's gonna be less expensive? Is this an intuition you have, or do you have some actual numbers?
The numbers I was looking at originally that Bernie Sanders had brought up
Okay,
showed that it should be less expensive. Now, I was looking at comparing it to the Obamacare insurance rates, and most of the numbers were going to be less. Now, there were a few cases where some of the 21 to 22s were a little bit higher,
okay.
and then when they turned 24 and 25, they dropped down below. So,
Bernie has been criticized for whether his numbers are really rigorous. And actually, you know, and
I asked a friend of mine who is fairly good at accounting to look it over, And he had a hard time trying to find fault in what he was looking at.
Okay.
And he went through and pulled out a lot of numbers from several different resources. And when I asked him, he does a lot of research for people to find it, people insurance rates and everything. For people, he does the insurance marketplace for people when they're doing the Obamacare market. So he's fairly good at that point. So he was having a hard time finding, fault with what he was looking at. He did find a few mistakes on there, but for the most part, he said, really, it's the lower people, when they first come into it, they'll pay a little bit higher. He says, but that's probably should be, they're more at risk because younger people do things, they're more at risk because, we think we're vulnerable. We drive faster, we're out doing, more risky things, we're mountain climbing, we're out doing river, rafting that we shouldn't be doing. And so that's why they should be a little bit higher risk. And, number one, insurance has everybody at higher risk back up at that anyway, so they should be a little bit higher risk. So at that rate it was. Now, when they actually get down to it and redo it, are they gonna stay at that? Fingers crossed. So, but we'll have to see.
Are you for single payer?
I would rather see Medicare, but I'll take single payer. I just want to get down to one source. I want us to get down to where we're not fighting like we are over the insurance thing. Because I want us to get down to, eventually we're probably going to be on Medicare for all, but we're going to have to step it down to where we're on something now, instead of fighting over whether we're having Obamacare or we're having Medicare or we're having something. So I want us on something now, and I think state of Oregon needs to decide for each state. I think the states have to decide for each one, and then eventually the US will eventually merge everything into something.
Right now, I'm getting my medical insurance through Medicare. Oregon isn't involved.
Right. I see right now I'm on disability myself, so I've got mine through Medicare.
Right.
So, and I like Medicare myself, so I'm preferring that. It's better than what I had before.
I like Medicare. I have not experienced the donut hole that you're talking about, but that's probably because I have a Medicare Advantage plan.
Well, so did my mother, but she had severe asthma, and when you have asthma, you're getting a lot more of the higher expensive drugs. She was going through 6 ampules, six ampules a month plus 2 other ampules of something else, and that was just her puffers. And then that didn't include all her pills and everything else, so we were going through drugs like you wouldn't believe. So I think we were at something like $6,000 in drugs just for her alone a month. So it was expensive.
I have a question
Yes.
about Medicare and single payer and all
Yeah.
that. We have Medicare, and like you said, you have a supplement.
Yeah, you have
You
insurance.
have your insurance. Okay, so if we have Medicare for all or single payer, the people, we would still have to pay for it. I mean, I know that taxes will probably go up for that, but out of your pocket, wouldn't you still have to pay? Because Medicare pays 80%, then you have 20%. And if you don't have a supplement, then you have to pay that 20%, whether it's hospital or doctor care. And so how's that, I've never understood how that would work for Medicare for all or
Medicare for all is supposed to rid the supplement.
supposed to what?
Rid the supplement.
Well, that's what I don't understand. How could
Yeah,
you do
because we have Medicare, but you need it, it doesn't cover it.
Well, it's just like single payer.
Well,
You go
it's-
to Canada, they don't have,
Right.
that? Right, so
They
then
don't
you don't
have-
have that expense. So
Right.
single
they
payer
don't have
means,
that expense.
single payer means free. Is that what that means? Because it seems to me like if everybody had Medicare, you still have to pay for it. You still have to pay it out of your taxes.
Now,
Right.
single payer is private insurance. Medicare for all is Medicare,
Right.
but no private insurance.
I thought that single
No,
payer.
single payer is the government.
But not Medicare. Right, excuse me. Single payer is still government, but not Medicare.
But if we go to single payer, it would cost a whole lot less than our insurance payments.
Yeah,
People say that
It's-
it's
What do you
not
mean,
really
it
true.
costs less than your insurance, you still have insurance payments.
No, you wouldn't.
Okay,
If then
okay,
it
so
would
that,
eliminate the profit, then take it in by
Nobody
insurance.
in England, for example, pays for healthcare.
right, I know that, yeah,
but they,
Nobody-
They said they pay through their
Nobody in
taxes.
Canada pays for
Right.
health.
Because
but they have
pay
a tax
they
for
pay
it.
they pay it out of their income.
Through the office.
Yeah, but
So that's what I'm saying,
And the
we
whole
pay,
country pays.
okay,
Everybody comes.
I still don't see how it works, but I hope it does. Okay.
It's, excuse me, going through all of it. But Medicare for all would be no more private insurance, it'd just be one bill through them. And it'd be less confusing to switch out people over to Medicare because they're set up better at the moment than trying to do it with a single payer, but I don't know yet if we could do it that way.
I don't either.
Oregon is set up, I think, the best at the moment to handle either direction because they have Medicaid or the Medicare. So I think we're set up either direction. And I think we're aiming the other way, to go with Medicare, but we're looking at. Right now, I will support whatever Oregon does. So,
Well, they better not mess with my Medicare, it's just fine.
As long as you
You
pay.
guys try all these different things, but you need to get serious and have Medicare, take a few bucks out of your check and pay, and you don't see a bill ever.
But you do pay, I'm sorry dear, you
Yes,
do.
you do.
I said that.
but like I said,
You have to pay
It's
for it.
like this year, our drug plan went up,
Bill.
double a month, yes.
Double?
Yeah,
Our drug plan went
that's
up,
under your hat.
over double. So,
We hate to inform you.
So I'm just,
but
you know,
it's
so
not
did- well, so did
legal,
the,
it's 160.
supplement go up, but, so that's just it, I'm saying, and that's why I don't understand. If people are on Medicare the way we are, and I don't think that's what you're talking about, but they would still have to pay to some kind of insurance coverage, otherwise, you know, people that aren't making, would it be a sliding scale, and if I make this much, I get this much covered, or, I don't know.
well, and then
Study
if Medicare for all, then your drug plan would go onto a Medicare plan. So it's no longer a private insurance plan,
There's no way to beat it.
but that would also include hearing and
Wouldn't that be nice?
glasses and stuff.
Yeah.
Something needs to change from what we've got now, cause like it's fine, it's like I hear all you talk about your Medicare, I'm happy for you, I'm glad you got it.
Yeah.
I thought there was cracks, I'm self-employed, I am not old enough to be eligible
Yeah,
for
it's hard.
Medicare, but I make too much for OHP and not enough to buy health insurance.
Yeah.
I cross my fingers, that's my insurance.
Yeah.
Just hope you don't get sick.
See, that's the problem. You're
So we need to find someone to fill in that line for you.
Yeah, me and not enough dealing with one of our positions by the long shot.
Right, it would even make sense just to lower Medicare, lower the age. Because people who are going to have health issues later in life, it's gonna start in probably their late 50s, maybe. So if Medicare was even lowered to 55, then that would cover how many more million people?
Right.
And if looking at, I mean, because I'm self-employed also, I can't afford health insurance.
Well, not only that, when you're starting like when you're 50s, that's when you need preventative health care, and you need, that's when
Right.
things start.
We need to do, and Medicare, even though there is a fee, it's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that $136 a month or whatever the hell it is way
It's not
cheaper
bad.
than a $400 a month plan
Yes,
with a
that's right.
$10,000 deductible.
Well,
You better hope you don't get
Yeah.
sick.
Unfortunately, when the body hits 50, it starts saying, I'm turning this off and this off.
one plan that nobody's ever looked at are Indians. Indians have free healthcare from infancy to death.
They provide it, their community provides it.
No, the federal government provides it, it's a trust responsibility. The tribes have nothing whatsoever to do with paying for it. It's the government that provides it.
Well, it's because we treated them like
It's
shit.
it's a payment, it's
It's a
paying
payback.
for their.
They don't pay for anything.
No, but the reason they're doing that is because they're of the
They pay for
treatment
it
from
with
the.
their
Well,
health.
yeah, but it's the trust responsibility that the government has toward people they took their land from, is
Okay,
what you mean.
Okay, yes,
But it's still a single payer plan from birth to death.
It's similar to Congress's plan, actually, but yeah.
I remember when we tried
Congress.
Congress's
What is
plan.
it called?
we tried to prove if we had
It isn't as good as
harder.
Not quite, but it's similar.
We could get a good deal on our health care, but I could only come up with 1/8. Oh, God,
But,
pissed me off.
like I said, I understand what you're saying about trying to get the Republicans. I'll never get the always Trumpers on my side, I know that. But talking with the unions and talking with the educators and everything, I have already been getting them to understand where I'm going and what I've been saying. This is why I've got an integrated platform.
Have you
And
looked at the news tonight?
I have not been.
Do you know what's happening in the Middle East?
Iraq and Iran.
Do you know that they have now retaliated
I haven't
and
heard
that
about
they
the
have
retaliation.
lobbed ballistic missiles onto 2 Iraqi bases where Americans are?
I haven't-
And there's some report that perhaps they absolutely decimated El Amin Air Force Base and 30 US soldiers have been killed, but that hasn't been
Hasn't
But
been on
that's-
the news.
as we speak, that's happening right now.
It's on your
So we
computer.
may not be even worried about single payer.
Well, I was just asking Karen if we could use the basement as a fallout shelter.
It would not surprise me on there because he's been building up for,
We might get more Democratic focus groups.
well, he's been building up for,
And that's just the beginning. They say they're gonna get us. So hang on to your hat.
well, the more likely.
Putin's coming in and he's got good relationships with Iran and he's gonna be a peace, he's gonna make the peace
Yeah, he's
because
gonna
that's
give
what
them
he
weapons.
prizes
He's gonna
himself.
be the mediator.
He's gonna give them
He'll
weapons.
mediate it and Trump likes him and so he'll and
Everybody's,
he'll emerge as the big peacemaker.
he's giving them jets.
It doesn't surprise me because he's been building up for,
here.
when he pulled out of the Iran deal, I knew something was gonna happen. So it was just a matter of time of what happened between us and Iran.
Well, and another thing we need to look at is we talk about, we can't afford this for schools, and we can't afford this for healthcare, and we can't afford this and that, and it's all money. But we can't afford over $1 trillion budget for the military. Where do we get that from?
100%.
So, I mean,
There's lots of cuts that go from here to the military.
Yeah,
They've
and yet,
robbed all of these bases of 40 million here, 20 million there, 60 million there, and given it to the military.
Well-
He's done that about a year ago or less.
well, here's also the thing, is he cut all this money from the military to put onto his wall.
He wants to build a wall down by Mexico too, don't forget that.
So, you know, all that money, and that money came from European bases.
So, we've got you here, pinned you down.
Yes,
What sort of support should we give to the military, financial?
one, we do support our troops where we can. One, they need to be well armed, and we need to support our boys where. But when it comes to the Middle East, that is one cluster I have no idea how we're gonna handle.
Well, you know, one thing, you know, a lot of those folks that are in the, it's volunteer, it's a volunteer army.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those folks, those young kids that are in there, and there's older folks also, they're in there for one reason, they can't make it on the outside.
That's right.
Right.
Education.
And
It's called
so,
back
you know,
draft.
that young girl that got killed here, the Alice, daughter of Alice, over there in Iraq.
Jessica.
You know, when you look at that and you say, you know, it really bothers me that they're saying, hey, you know, you're a poster child. And I was saying, you know, we had that person, we caused that person to be killed at the age of 22. A young woman who wanted to become a doctor And the reason she went over there, and I've heard a lot of folks, I had some fellows, you go to the military, and if you can get into their program, they'll pay for you to become a doctor. That's what she was hoping for. But she's not a doctor, she's over there in Arlington in the ground. And that was one of our kids. And these guys, you know, you feel for them because they said, you know, the president said, well, you know what you were in for when you joined. No, they didn't. They said, hey, you know, we're gonna go in here and try to make a living, maybe get some money so we can go out and get an education or whatever, make some money, $10,000 bonus or whatever.
That's called bait and switch.
Yeah.
Well, backdoor draft.
And he started a war for votes.
Backdoor
He
draft.
started a war for votes, he started a war for money
Back of somewhere.
for his campaign. But he didn't start a war for a reason. You know, it wasn't,
I don't think the
it wasn't
Democrats,
to denuclearize Iran.
the Democrats can't even stop Mitchell McConnell from doing the trial that he wants to do, where they're just gonna go in and say, okay, we've heard opening arguments, now let's vote. That's exactly what, Democrats can't stop that. I mean, Democrats have no power except in the House. Now, they've impeached this president.
I know you're down about not being able to stop it, but here's the thing. If he does pull that, what is gonna happen in Tennessee with his opponent? Because she's going to advertise the heck out of it, and she's probably going to beat him in this. In
Mitchell
Tennessee.
McConnell, he's not good, McConnell's not
McConnell's not
good.
gonna do anything to.
I mean,
Democrats.
I'm just so
There's a
sour
2-point
on-
difference between him and his opponent right now.
Well,
Yes.
don't believe those polls.
No.
I mean, look what happened the last time.
I know, but
Yeah.
but right now, that's pretty good difference, pull of difference on there. That's a good enough difference for Tennessee.
Well, I wanna get home and watch my TV because I wanna see how the fight's going.
Well, wait a minute, I wanna say something. I'm a person, I see the glass half full, okay? So when Bush was out of office, when he was going out and Obama was running and he won,
Mhm.
we had an inauguration party at our house. And I was so surprised at how many, I mean, we have a little house. We had 35, 40 people there, and I know those weren't all Democrats. And I know that they can come and appreciate the fact that, you know, and celebrate a new president, but I think they voted for Democrat. So what I'm saying is that they didn't like what happened with Bush all those years. They got to the point they didn't like that. And so my hope and my thinking is the same thing's gonna happen this year.
This could easily change things, and also this fight right now that's happening in Iran, in Iraq, because this is flowing back and forth between the two things. This is our sons and daughters that are over there, that are fighting on his behalf, and they're not doing it not for his behalf, but on his behalf. Because you know they're not doing it willingly for his behalf. They're doing it for our behalf, but not willingly for his behalf.
But they're what, like they said tonight, the mission of our troops in Iraq was to fight against ISIS,
Right.
to capture ISIS. That was the mission. Now all of a sudden, they're fighting against Iran, and that was never,
The mission.
never. And for the first time in the history of our country and Iran, has Iran lobbed missiles directly from Iran itself, the government lobbed missiles on American assets. So it's like every day we say, oh my God, how can this happen? And then we just go to the next day and it's, oh my God, how could this happen? And it's I don't know how it could happen, but it never seems to lessen. It's just deflect.
But how is history going to look at this when it comes down to the vote? Are they going to blame Trump for this? Or are they going to say that Trump is the reason? Are they going to vote Trump in because of it? Or are they going to vote Trump out because of it?
Because of what
Because of this.
Because of the fight.
Because of this, I think they'll vote him out, I really do, and I think the Republicans, they already know they're in trouble. I mean, they are, how can human beings act the way they act? And then when you look at when Nixon was impeached, the Republicans went right up to the wire supporting him until they got the actual information about those tapes, Watergate tapes. And then they all came back.
Well, I'm a glass half empty person.
Okay,
This is a different set of players.
It is,
An
it is.
entirely different
well,
set
it
of players.
is, except that they want to be allegiance to the guy they have in office, and I think he's a puppet. They expected him to be a puppet, just like Bush was, but he's not. He's
I think that-
sociopath.
well, here's one thing that folks, I don't think you're taking into account right now. That now that Iran has done what they've done, is the Pentagon going to be loyal to Trump? Are they going to turn over what is going to be needed to the Congress? Finally, the papers that they've requested.
Which,
You mean the Bush papers?
They've been requesting there have been papers that they've been requested that
Oh.
Trump has refused to hand over.
wait, paper?
For impeachment? You mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I think they
The
will.
documents that
Oh, yeah.
they refused to hand over. Will they finally turn them over?
Oh, I think so. I think there's
There's
a
a
plan.
strong chance that after this, because this is a war that should never have happened.
I think you guys are missing the point.
What are we
The
missing?
point is Trump has appointed himself as a dictator, and if you don't like it, lump it. And he's gonna be there as long as he feels like.
Well, here's another point that I don't think many people are understanding, that there's a lot of people in the FBI that are not happy with what's happened because
I read that.
they're feeling that
I read that.
the Republicans have left them. There's a lot of people that are not happy in the CIA because they feel like the Republicans have left them. And now the Pentagon is probably going to be feeling the same way because of this. So what's going to happen next?
Ouch, goes out.
So
I just think that you can't underestimate the stupidity of the American public, and I think the reason for that is because for the last 20, 30 years, we've not invested anything in civics education.
That's
No, we
So we don't have anybody that can really, they make fun of these silly questions that Jay Leno asked to the passing person on the street about, who's
History.
vice president, and they don't know who it
Since
is.
the 19
But that's been our undoing.
Yeah.
It really, truly, we're not citizens, we're not educated to be citizens, and we're educated to really dislike people who are intelligent. Intellectuals, we don't like them, and so all of a sudden we have a guy in the White House who doesn't like them either, even though we went to Ivy League schools, and he pretends he didn't, he doesn't like them. So he says horrible things to people. Nancy Pelosi, and calls them names, Pocahontas. But because they want to say those same things. The majority of the people who support him want to hear those bad things
Right.
about other people.
well, since the 1980s, it's been my experience I've been learning is the history that you were taught, the history I was taught, has shrunk.
That's right.
Especially about World War II and even Jim Crow laws and stuff like that. It's really shrunk down on there that learning about Auschwitz and everything is.
Do they teach history in high school anymore?
Yes, they do, but just learning about even Anne Frank has been almost unheard of today.
Can we focus on CD two?
Yes, but getting back to that on there, but this is something that,
Well, okay, I guess I have two questions.
fire away.
Why are you a better candidate, or why are you more able to win the seat of Congress than some of your Democratic opponents? And why would you be a better congressman than some of them?
I think I'm better at, because I've got an integrated campaign.
Okay,
My platform's more integrated overall. And I've already got a start because as a political strategist, I've got a head start being in Washington, going to Washington, and with a background of already knowing about what aides to go talk to, knowing things about other congressmen and senators, so I have a better background with them.
Was that in your Republican school, Democratic school thing, or?
Actually, that was actually afterwards on their. After I got done with that, going to talk with them, going to Washington, and working with other counties, and teaching other politicians to run. So I've already got some heads up, and I've already got allies that are already in office that I've actually taught. So I've already made allies. I've already got some people that have got heads up on what their needs and wants are. I've got some people that already know their aides, and then I've already got an idea of
Congressional aides?
Yeah. And so I've already got some heads up on, where to start and how to get going on it. So I'm not going to be going in there going, oh gee, this is going to be interesting. I've already, got some background on what I'm going to be heading into. And
Well, are you a Democratic appointment, or
No.
have you been elected as?
I've never been elected on here. I've just been a teacher.
So you're not really a Democratic candidate,
Yes, I'm a candidate. I'm a candidate.
you've been elected to be a candidate.
Well, this is the primary job.
Primary. I'm a
I
primary.
don't care what it is, I wanna know if he's been elected as a candidate.
For other office.
We haven't had the election yet.
I haven't had an election yet.
So you're running to be.
I'm running to be elected.
Okay,
I put my money to the Secretary of State and said I'm willing to do it.
okay.
So
So you applied to be a candidate.
I've applied to be a candidate. I've been accepted by the Secretary of State and said, here I am. I'm willing to take the harsh treatment of all the people.
You don't know what harsh treatment is like until you, if you were here with Merkley and Wyden at Town Hall.
Oh, yeah.
I bet.
Oh, I don't think he's coming this year.
Very nasty, and I don't think.
I don't
he's
think
coming.
Murphy's gonna come. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
Well, he was in
What is-
Paisley,
I know,
and
but
Wyden was here, and they took a
This
lot.
year? No, last year. Oh, I know.
I was
Murphy
here.
This year or
was
second
here
days
last
old.
year too, and he just got trounced.
The Shooters Club came in and really trounced it.
Oh, I know.
So where were
You
you,
go
where
Harsh
were
treatment,
you,
you go in Alabama.
where were you educated?
Educated?
Uh-huh.
Well, I went to conventions, and then I took my last online education was with the Democratic State Democratic Chairs online school.
But I mean, do you have, where, did you go to school?
I did not go
You
there.
didn't go to college?
I did. My last college was with Road Community College, and then my business I had took off, so I wound up doing a bookstore that wound up doing better at that, and then love life and all that happened. You know how that goes. Then I went through the School of Hard Knocks, and then I wound up becoming a realtor and da. So most of mine was a hard life education.
I'd like to invite you to coffee tomorrow morning at 8:30 at Helen's. And explain to
Good
the
luck.
coffee group what you are. Because I'm the only Democrat that will allow coffee.
And you can't talk politics.
Oh, you can't talk politics?
No.
You're not supposed to talk politics,
No.
but that's a lie.
Oh, they hit it, huh?
No, I think they want you to talk. She doesn't want you to talk politics.
So you have to redo these
Why?
because Walden's attorney.
Well, yeah, I know, those were done up, way ahead of, and then Walden quit on me, and
That's
we still have 1,000 left to do, get rid of, so,
Oh, okay, well, it's beginning.
yeah, we're at the beginning on here. Once we get rid of that last 1,000, we have the new run on.
Well, as long as we're carrying into the brochure,
Yes, one more
let
time.
me say that I like the way you look right in front of us here more than I like the picture on that brochure.
Oh,
I think that's
You're
better.
standing. Yeah, the sweater is one thing, the t-shirt and the sweater is one thing, but also you're standing. Yeah, we know you've got a thing that you helps you stand, but I think that looks better
I think that
than
most
something with you sitting with your dog. Just honestly, very, I mean, that's a superficial that's a superficial thing, it doesn't have anything to do with your beauty, and I think what I'm seeing here is a lot more forceful look than what I see on your brochure, I'm just saying.
Well, we were trying to find different ways to get me some pictures, and that was what the photographer wanted to shoot me as.
Okay, just saying, you know, everybody.
Like I said, that was our first one on here. We're still taking more pictures on here, so. And we're also experimenting with my looks.
And another thing is,
Yes, ma'am.
who is there?
There,
You have John with their golden retriever, touchy little bear.
Oh.
His?
yeah.
That's singular they is the,
Yes.
Merriam-Webster actually endorses it.
Because I'm transgender, I don't say he or she. I use they.
Oh, okay,
They and them.
gotcha. Gotcha.
So,
Nothing.
I didn't say I was transgender at the beginning, I normally do, but I'm going for male, female. That's another thing we've been doing in Congress. I'm gonna give them fits by doing that when I.
Yeah, I saw that not too long ago and I was confused about it, so that explains it.
Yes, that is it.
Yeah.
My apologies, I normally give my pronouns and I get them. And my apologies for that.
Well, Debbie would.
We started everything else. So,
Tell me.
anything else?
We thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you folks for having me.
Come along.
Thank you very
No.
much.
Been roasted, toasted, and
Hosted.
hosted. Thank you. I knew there was another word I needed.
I still invite you to come down to